Plaintiff Justine Turner says at the age of 12, she discovered that the man she thought was her father was not, and she's been searching for her biological dad for the past 20 years. Justine now believes the defendant is her father, so she petitioned the court for a paternity test. Defendant Lawrence Jenkins admits he had a fling with Justine's mother around the time she was conceived, but says he had no idea she had a child. Lawrence says after meeting Justine for the first time last night, he has no doubt that she is his daughter.
All right, and we are here to determine paternity here, whether Mr. Jenkins is your father. Is that correct, Ms. Turner?
Yes, sir.
I'll start with you.
So I was around the age of 12, and I was at one of my little brother's baseball games, and my dad would umpire the games, and we had gotten into an exchange of words. I had walked away from the field. I said I hated him. I wish he wasn't my dad. And my sister was there at the time, and she says to me, you know, that's actually not your dad. So it kind of took me by surprise, and I asked her, what? And she says, again, that's not really your dad. So I sat on it.
How old was your sister?
She's 4 years older than me. She was about 16. So I sat on it for a few days and got into a kind of heated debate with my mom a few days after that. And I said, so when were you going to tell me that dad isn't my dad? And it threw her off guard. She's like, what? And I'm like, when were you going to tell me that dad wasn't my dad? So she's like, well, who told you that? And I'm like, Josh told me, who's my sister. So she says, well, no, he's not your dad. So I asked, you know, can you tell me some information on who my dad is? She really couldn't recall really much information about him. She had a name of Thomas, and that's really all she had to give me to go off of. So for the next few years, going through a couple of different social medias, don't find anyone. I happened to find a family member. So I asked her if he was in the military because my mom had said she had met my dad on the military base. She said she knew a guy named Thomas who was in the military, but unfortunately he had died. So when she told me he died, everything died that day. My search died that day. My ambitions to find out anybody else from the family died that day. I let it die. So fast forward about a decade later, I have my own son. And I understand the importance of knowing who your family is. So it reignited my mission to find at least someone on my biological father's side. If it wasn't going to be him, he had to have cousins, he had to have sisters, brothers, somebody who was tied to me. So I got a DNA kit, sent the kit back in, got the results back. And through the app, I had a DNA match with 2 girls. And it was the highest percentage of DNA matched. It gave me second cousins, third cousins, but it said these 2 ladies were either my grandparents, my half-siblings, or my niece and nephew. It showed their age, so that ruled out them being my grandparents or my niece and nephew. So I took the names and I got on Facebook, looked them up on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm not quite sure how we're related, but we match DNA-wise, and I would like to get to know how we're related. So I got in contact with one of my sisters, and she happens to say, yeah, you know, your DNA matches with me more than my sister from my mom. So she's like, we got to be sisters. So I was like, well, let me ask you, is, you know, our father still alive? She was like, you know, not only is he alive, you know, his name is Larry, he's a DJ, he, you know, you can get in contact with him. So a couple of days had passed by, and then we found each other on Facebook, we sent each other messages, and, you know, we're both open to exploring if we are, in fact, father and daughter. But there was always that thought that maybe this isn't it. You know, I've done this for over 20 years trying to find who my dad is. So before I get to know someone as my actual father, I wanted to make sure that he was indeed my actual father.
Plaintiff Justine Turner believes the defendant may be her biological father. So she petitioned the court for a paternity test to find out once and for all.
Let me get some background from you, sir.
All right, well, so what had happened was in 1990, I was stationed in Aberdeen, Maryland at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in the United States Army. And I met a lady and we had a fling for maybe 2 weeks. And it was nothing real big. We just kind of hung out and did our thing and then both kind of went our separate ways. And then I was in Aberdeen for about 16 weeks. Never heard anything from her again. So I was DJing a wedding about 6 months ago, and I got a phone call from my daughter, and she knew I was DJing, but I answered the phone.
Why the woman wouldn't get back to you and y'all were dating for 2 weeks?
Yeah, that was it.
I'm asking you, why didn't she? You know, you had some stack guy, you got no rap, your rap ain't?
Oh, my rap is tight.
You know what rap mean? It's
When you
talking.
talk to young ladies.
Yeah, when you try to, convince them,
Yeah.
your word things that you say, you're trying to convince them to be your woman. All right, I'm messing with you. I know why it was. It wasn't her. It was you trying to jump around in the army. That's what that was. And she didn't get back to me. You were dodging her. She probably was trying to get back to you. But go ahead.
All right. So anyway, my daughter called during a DJ session, and I answered the phone, and she was like, "Dad, where all were you stationed?" And I was like, "Well, Fort Hood, Fort Sill, Aberdeen." And she's like, "No. What cities were they in?" So I was like, "Okay, Oklahoma, Texas, Maryland." And as soon as I said Maryland, she stopped me and she said, "You have another daughter." Okay, what are you telling me? She said, "You have another daughter." I'm like, okay, kind of in the middle of DJing this wedding. Let me get back to you. So as I'm DJing, I'm thinking, uh-oh, what have I done? What's going on? So
That's the song he played at the wedding, right?
Marvin, yeah, that's right.
After talking to my daughter, she gave me Justine's information, and I contacted her on Facebook, and we had conversation on Facebook, and then finally we talked on the phone, and we were open to meet. Well, some things happened where we weren't able to meet at the time, so I watch your show all the time, so I got the bright idea to send in for the DNA test.
Good.
And so went and took the DNA test, and here to find out for sure, 100%, that Justine is my daughter.
Yeah, and I applaud you for being so engaged in the process and wanting to find out, and that's not always the case. Some folks are either scared or hope it's not the case. Glad to hear that you are hopeful as opposed to concerned.
Well, after meeting Justine yesterday for the first time and hanging out with her last night and getting to know her and seeing her mannerisms and kind of the way she acted, I knew 100% that she was my daughter.
Wow.
If you look at this beautiful young lady, you can see her and me all day long.
All right, and you are hopeful as well.
Very much so,
Sounds
yes.
like.
Yes.
All right, very good. Let's see. Brace yourself. I hate doing these sometimes, but it's for the benefit of the families, and so this is a good time. You all are father and daughter. Congratulations. Yep, you got it right.
Thank you.
I would order back child support, but he was innocent. He wasn't dodging. All right.
That's awesome.
Hi, Dad. 32 years, but hi, Dad.
Hi, Justine, and I'm glad we finally met. And sorry I wasn't there for the majority of your life, but I'm hoping from this point forward we can make a great relationship and move forward.